What would you do if you were caught between vindictive, racist residents and the innocent neighbors they were trying to evict? In today's story, my choice was a masterclass in how to handle it. It all started back in 2011, and I only get vengeful when someone truly deserves it. I used to work in the private security field, and no, not as a mall cop, but as part of a highly trained and armed security team. Our contracts were for high-end residential buildings, the kind of places where you'd see $200,000 cars parked in the garages. As you can imagine, complexes like this are ground zero for entitled residents and their equally spoiled teenagers. Fortunately, the owner of my company was awesome. He was a police officer in his regular job, so he understood exactly what we faced on a daily basis. His advice was straightforward: be nice, but put the hammer down when you have to, and never take their nonsense. He even joked that if we weren't getting at least 2 complaints a month about worthless things, we weren't engaging the residents enough. This next part is crucial to the story. Each supervisor, including me, was in charge of 10 to 15 properties, while regular officers did the patrols. Our job was to handle the serious stuff, assisting with evictions, attending town halls to discuss security issues, and updating patrol protocols for problem areas. I personally managed 12 properties. At one particular apartment complex, there was this one couple, the Abbotts, who were constantly calling our emergency line, which was open from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Every time we'd arrive, they would launch into a tirade about their upstairs neighbors, the Changs. The list of complaints was always changing. One night it was stomping, the next it was loud music, then talking, cooking smells, and even a bizarre claim that the Chang's dog was urinating off their balcony onto the Abbott's patio below. These would have been valid complaints if we had ever found a shred of evidence. We never did. When the Abbotts realized we were becoming skeptical, they changed their tactics and leaned into full-blown racism. Their upstairs neighbors were a sweet, wonderful, middle-aged Asian couple. Mr. Chung was an immigrant, but his wife was a born and raised American. But the Abbotts, having only ever spoken to the husband, made the classic racist assumption that they were both immigrants. Suddenly, their complaints were peppered with phrases like "those Asians" and vile comments like, "They are in America. Why can't they cook American food?" They even claimed, "I'm afraid to be in the parking garage when one of them is driving in it." It infuriated me, but as the property manager, Ms. Garcia, explained, unless they said these things directly to the Changs, there wasn't much she could do based on hearsay. All I could do was instruct my officers to quote their exact phrasing in every single report. Still, I was determined to find a way to get them evicted. They weren't just lying to ruin an innocent couple's life. They were wasting our time and resources with false reports, sometimes calling twice in a single night, averaging 5 to 8 times a week. About a month later, the perfect opportunity was handed to me on a silver platter. Mrs. Chung called me during the day to let me know that she and her husband were going to China for 2 weeks. Absolutely no one would be in their apartment. She told me this specifically so I would know any new complaints were lies, and she asked if I could have an officer check their door once a night just to make sure it was secure. I told her that was a great idea and advised her not to tell any of her neighbors she was leaving. Only myself and Ms. Garcia, the property manager, needed to know. At our patrol meeting that night, I laid out my plan to all the officers. I wanted them to respond to every single call from the Abbotts. They were to write down exactly what the Abbotts claimed was happening and to document any racial comment, no matter how minor. Each report was to be marked urgent and submitted through our online system. At that moment, the Abbotts had no idea that every lie they were about to tell was not just a waste of company money, but a nail they were hammering into their own eviction. And so, the trap was set. Over the next 14 days, while the Changs were thousands of miles away, the Abbotts complained 18 times. Every single lie was documented. I compiled the reports and took them straight to Ms. Garcia. I also pointed out that their constant false alarms were costing the property money, as emergency responses are billed at a higher rate than routine patrols. She looked over the evidence, her expression hardening with each page, and said, "Let's evict them." The Abbotts were sent a formal letter stating they were facing eviction and had 10 days to schedule a meeting. They promptly scheduled one. When I arrived, the Abbotts and Ms. Garcia were already seated at the table. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Before I could even sit down, Mrs. Abbott immediately started in on me. "Why are you armed?" she demanded. My uniform for these situations was professional but tactical, a dress shirt, tie, slacks, and a sidearm with one extra magazine, because meetings like this can sometimes turn dangerous. I politely informed her that it was my required uniform and not her decision to make. She huffed, declaring she felt uncomfortable and wanted to reschedule. Ms. Garcia shut that down instantly. "This happens now," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument, "or I will evict you without another word." They agreed to continue. For legal reasons, these sessions are always recorded on video to prevent anyone from lying in eviction court later. With the camera rolling, I laid out the 18 incident reports on the table in front of me. I began to go through them, one by one, reading the date, the time, the caller, and the specific complaint. After each one, I read out the report details and asked them to tell me what they felt was false and what was true. This revealed the Abbott's fatal flaw, their arrogance. They were so confident in their position that they couldn't fathom that a security officer's meticulously kept records could ever be their undoing. Over and over, they claimed the substance of the complaint, the noise, the stomping, was true, but they vehemently denied making the racial comments. After each of the first few reports, I would summarize. So, to be clear, the report is accurate in that the tenants in the apartment above were playing their music too loudly, but you are claiming the comments about their race are false? And every single time, I got a yes, that's correct. Around the 7th report, I saw a flicker of realization in Mrs. Abbott's eyes. She started complaining that I was dragging it out. I just offered a polite smile and reminded her, "This is my time. You will have ample opportunity to object and ask questions, but only after I am done." I then calmly proceeded through the remaining 11 reports, letting them dig their hole deeper and deeper, building a defense based on pure fiction. After I finished the 18th report and got my final confirmation from them, I paused, letting the silence hang in the air. Then, I looked them both in the eye. "After getting you to admit to all these lies," I said, my voice calm and pleasant, "I must now inform you that the tenants in that apartment were, in fact, out of the country at the time of all 18 of these reports." I let that sink in. The Ching family provided proof of their travel, and my officers personally checked the apartment once every night, confirming it was empty and locked. I smiled sweetly and ended my part of the presentation. The look on their faces was an incredible mixture of pure, unadulterated anger and absolute terror. Their jaws dropped. Mrs. Abbott's face went white as a sheet, while Mr. Abbott's turned a blotchy red. They were cornered, and they knew it. They had no defense, so they fell back on the only thing they had, bigotry. They started accusing me and Ms. Garcia of choosing immigrants over Americans. Oh, did I mention that Ms. Garcia is an immigrant herself? That accusation went over like a hand grenade in a church. When she calmly informed them of this fact, they just doubled down, sneering that she was just taking up for her own kind, while I remained calm on the outside. Inside I was thinking, oh, this is it. After a few more vile, racist remarks, Ms. Garcia had heard enough. She cut them off. "Guilty," she declared, her voice like steel. "I will process the eviction paperwork with the courts in the morning." As one online commenter on my story later noted, some people just never learn. The couple was initially given 30 days to vacate by the judge, but from what I heard, they couldn't help themselves and called him a racial name in court, too. The best part of all this was the phone call I got to make to the Chengs. I let them know the ordeal was over. They wouldn't have to worry about a thing, and they were welcome to call us anytime they had a real issue. Security officers are often limited by laws and property rules, so getting to do some actual, tangible good like this feels incredible. In the end, this whole ordeal proves a simple lesson: when you build a house of lies, especially on a foundation of prejudice, don't be surprised when someone with the truth comes and knocks it all down. What's the most satisfying moment of karmic justice you've ever witnessed?